Dude, I gotta say, man, I didn't doubt Anthony Richardson, but I just didn't realize that how talented he was. I mean, dude can ball, man. Like he is, and here's the thing about it. Like, I know people will say, well, he's not good enough to be a top 10 pick. Hell yeah, he is. It doesn't matter if you're that like good in college. Do you have the goods? Do you have the size? Check, right? Do you have the athletic ability? Check. Do you have the arm strength? Check. Like all the boxes are checked off with this guy, right? He's gonna be the best player on the field in most games. And I think Florida still has work to do on defense. Utah was able to drive the ball up and down the field as much as they wanted. Look, Utah had two opportunities in the second half, first and goal, and didn't score. It's not going to happen very often. I mean, Kentucky, I would imagine, is going to put the ball in the end zone first and goal at least one of the times, right? Utah wasn't able to do that. And look, in the end, Anthony Richardson puts Florida ahead, and Utah goes 90 yards in the swamp to go down the 4-yard line. Like, there are concerns on Florida's defensive side, I think, that Anthony Richardson can't make up in a game against Kentucky. I think Kentucky right now is probably slightly better, RJ. But I know Florida's feeling good about where they are. I just think the win against Utah hid some of the flaws this team has as Napier kind of overhauls the roster and gets the team going in his direction. But I do like, and he had this at Louisiana, that physicality up front, right? Like they're a physical unit on offense, and you'll always kind of be in a game if you have that, those type of players on your team.
I think you're right about Anthony Richardson, and I think you're right about Florida feeling good about themselves and kind of sort of playing with house money, but not really. And I'm going to walk that out here. First thing is, Anthony Richardson goes from what you and I both thought was maybe an iffy quarterback, an iffy starter for Billy Napier, with Jack Miller perhaps closer than we thought, to being what has to be a Heisman candidate after last year, knowing what he was able to do against Utah and some of the plays that he was able to make with his feet, but also extending plays. Excited to see what AR looks like against a Mark Stoops defense. But also, to that point, it's a big game for Kentucky. They have not beaten Florida in back-to-back years since 1976 and 1977. And this has a really big, this is a really big game for Mark Stoops, who could become winningest coach at Kentucky ahead of Paul Bear Bryant with a win at Florida with Will Levis, another guy many people think could be a first-round quarterback in the 2023 draft. I guess my question for you is, which one of those guys absolutely has to play the better game for his team to win, Will Levis or Anthony Richardson?
I think on the road, it's got to be the road quarterback, right? Like in a matchup like this. I mean, you look again, what Cam Rising was able to do, he played well enough, but then he didn't in the end, right? The only turnover of the game was down the 4-yard line. So to me, it does come down to Will Levis playing that game, because he doesn't have the physical tools that Richardson has to make plays out of nothing sometimes. And so I think you have to have kind of more control in the offense. As we're seeing here on the screen here, as we're zooming this, like, I mean, that 2-point conversion play was incredible. I mean, Will Levis doesn't have that in him. So I think to me, it does come down to him. But I want to backtrack a tiny bit on Florida here. Like, to me, the win against Utah, though, does put them in some unrealistic expectations category, right? I feel like if they lost to Utah, you're looking at this game this weekend going, okay, they played well against Utah. Kentucky's probably going to beat them, right? But now you go into it thinking like, oh, and maybe they're a 9-win team. We're talking about, if Utah loses to a 9-win Florida team, are they a playoff? I feel like Florida's quarterback-wise there, but the rest of the team is not, in my opinion, at the level of 9 wins yet. And so this weekend will be very interesting to see a very solid Kentucky team that go in the swamp and pull this one out.
I think you're on to something in as far as the expectations, because they go from unranked to number 12, which is a dramatic leap in the Associated Press rankings. But I also think that a lot of people want to remember what Florida was like circa 2007, which is also interesting because this is the last time that we got to talk about a Florida team being ranked going in to play Kentucky at home, which I thought was kind of wild when I had to go double check that in the notes to make sure that was on target. But I also think this is interesting from one more standpoint, going back to Georgia and a team that plays for an SEC and or national title, depending on how good you think that last week's team was. Do you think the winner of this game, Florida and Kentucky, is the presumptive challenger to Georgia in the SEC East?
I mean, no one's challenging Georgia in the SEC East. Oregon's not a bad team. They played bad this weekend. I mean, I think that, look, with Georgia, right, like the question was Stetson Bennett. And I think defensively, they're not as good as last year. Obviously, they lost 7 starters. I think there were actually opportunities for Oregon, and they did move the ball well, considering that they had a quarterback that kept turning the ball over. But Stetson Bennett, man, if that's what this offense is going to be, and there were reporters that cover this team that talked about how this offense was just different, the formations, the motions, the shifts, and if they're kind of progressing their offense into something else, no, you're not. No one's beating this team this season except Alabama, possibly. And even then, I think Georgia might be better right now.
Perhaps it's thinking a little too far out in advance to think that maybe Florida turns this into a game at the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. But apparently my man Geoff is all in on Georgia, and it's their world and we're living in it. And after what I saw against what I still think is a decent Oregon team too, yeah, that's probably correct. Thank you for watching the #1 college football show. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and like this video so that you don't miss any of the best college football coverage in America.